Disaster for Venezuela. U.S. Marine raiders just collapsed Maduro's $899 million underground submarine facility in 15 seconds flat. While his Chinese air defenses scanned the skies, American demolition experts were already planting charges 40 FT underwater. Hit subscribe now because this amphibious strike just redefined impossible. Venezuela's hidden submarine empire. Venezuela's hidden submarine empire. Maduro's $899 million facility wasn't just about building submarines. It was about creating an invisible naval force that could operate in America's maritime backyard without ever surfacing. The mountain complex near Tucacas Bay housed 3 separate pressure chambers, each one large enough to accommodate a full Kilo-class submarine hull. During modification, Venezuelan engineers were installing specialized acoustic dampening tiles, the same technology that makes Russian submarines nearly undetectable to sonar, onto diesel-electric boats purchased through Iranian shell companies. Each modified submarine could carry 2,000 kilos of cocaine across the Atlantic while running silent at depths of 300 mux, far below the detection threshold of most Coast Guard patrol aircraft. But here's what nobody saw coming. The entire facility had one fatal dependency that no amount of Chinese engineering expertise could eliminate, and that vulnerability was literally built into the mountain itself. The weakness beneath the fortress. The weakness beneath the fortress. Every underground military facility faces the same engineering paradox. The deeper you build, the more you need to breathe. Venezuela's submarine assembly complex required constant atmospheric exchange to prevent toxic fumes from welding operations, diesel fuel vapors, and battery acid from killing the 200 workers inside. Chinese engineers designed an elaborate ventilation system with a massive 8-meter diameter exhaust port that opened 40 FT below the ocean surface, positioned to vent heated air while remaining invisible to satellite thermal imaging. The system cycled 50,000 cubic meters of air every hour through titanium-reinforced ducts that cost $12 million alone to install. Venezuelan security planners were so confident in this design that they posted only minimal security around the submerged vent, assuming no adversary would even know it existed. But even finding the exhaust port wasn't enough to destroy the facility. Because the real question became, how do you deliver explosives to a target 40 FT underwater without alerting an entire coastal defense network that's watching the surface? The ghost approach beneath the waves. The ghost approach beneath the waves. SEAL delivery vehicles are the most sophisticated infiltration platforms ever designed for underwater warfare. And what happened off Tucacas Bay proves why. The Mk-11 SDV used in this operation is essentially a miniature submarine that holds 6 operators plus 400 kilo of demolition equipment, all while moving at 8 knots in complete silence. Unlike traditional submarines that use propellers, the SDV employs a shrouded pump jet propulsion system that generates 0 cavitation bubbles, making it acoustically invisible to sonar systems designed to detect mechanical propeller signatures. As the SDV glided along the seafloor at 45 FT depth, its navigation computer was receiving real-time updates from the USS Delaware's combat system via encrypted underwater acoustic modem, a technology that transmits data through sound waves at frequencies that marine life and enemy hydrophones interpret as natural ocean noise. The Venezuelan coastal patrol boats equipped with Iranian sonar buoys were listening for diesel engine signatures and propeller cavitation, completely blind to the fact that 6 American special operators were now 400 meters from their target, carrying enough explosive power to trigger a controlled implosion. So here's the million-dollar question. How do you place charges on a submerged ventilation port designed to withstand hurricane-force ocean currents without alerting security sensors monitoring the fascicul's internal pressure systems? Precision. Precision demolition. Science demolition science. The Mk-48 Mod 1 linear-shaped charge isn't just an explosive. It's a surgical cutting instrument that directs 85% of its blast energy into a focused jet of superheated gas traveling at $8,000 ms. When properly positioned, this charge can slice through 30 similitudes of reinforced steel like a plasma torch cutting butter. And the Marine Raiders positioned 14 individual charges in a geometric pattern calculated to induce progressive structural failure. Each charge was attached to the exhaust port support pylons using magnetic clamps with pressure-compensated adhesive that remained stable at depth, ensuring 0 movement even as ocean currents pushed against the operators. They determined that if the charges fired in a precisely timed sequence with 0.3-second intervals, the blast waves would create harmonic resonance that amplified the destructive force by 340%. The Raiders synchronized their detonators to atomic clock precision via their dive computers, ensuring that when the sequence initiated, the cascade implosion. At 0352 hours, the shaped charges detonated in sequence, and physics became Venezuela's worst enemy. The first 3 charges severed the exhaust port's primary support pylons, creating an immediate structural void that ocean pressure exploited within milliseconds. Seawater began flooding through the 8-mer opening at a rate of 2.4 million L per minute, driven by the pressure differential between the ocean depth and the facility's internal atmosphere. The submarine assembly bay was designed as a positive pressure environment to prevent water intrusion during construction, but the engineers never calculated for catastrophic breach scenarios where the entire ventilation system would fail simultaneously. Venezuelan rescue teams arriving at the surface entrance 20 minutes later found only a sealed mountain with seawater pouring from ventilation shafts. Want to know the most shocking part? The U.S. executed this demolition using less than $400,000 worth of explosives to destroy an $899 million facility. But the critical question every defense minister is asking right now is, can any underground bunker actually survive an enemy that understands your structural engineering better than your own architects? The invisible overwatch? The invisible overwatch? While the raiders were planting charges underwater, the USS Arleigh Burke destroyer, positioned 85 nautical miles offshore, was orchestrating the most sophisticated electronic deception operation in Caribbean naval history. The ship's ANSI 6V1 radar system was operating in a mode that most people don't know exists: passive detection using electromagnetic emissions from Venezuela's own radar network to triangulate their exact positions without ever transmitting a single pulse. Simultaneously, an EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft was generating what Navy specialists call cooperative false targets, radar signatures that mimic incoming cruise missiles but contain subtle digital markers that U.S. systems recognize as friendly. While enemy fire control computers interpret as genuine threats, Chinese military doctrine, which Venezuelan operators were trained to follow religiously, mandates immediate battery rotation toward the highest speed threats, which meant every air defense radar was pointing away from the coast, while the real demolition team was working 40 FT underwater. The destroyer's Combat Information Center was recording every Venezuelan communication, tracking the precise moment when their air defense network committed to the phantom threat, creating a 12-minute window where coastal coverage dropped to 34% effectiveness. But the most devastating aspect wasn't the deception itself. The new rules of naval warfare. This strike fundamentally changed how nations will approach underground military construction for the next decade. Venezuela invested 3 years and $899 million into a facility that was eliminated in 15 seconds by a 6-man team carrying demolition charges that cost less than a luxury sedan. Chinese military analysts studying the Tucacas collapse are now revising their doctrine on underground naval facilities, recognizing that synthetic aperture sonar has evolved to the point where no submerged structure remains hidden from adversaries with advanced oceanographic mapping capabilities. The Venezuelan disaster proves that modern warfare has shifted from a contest of armor versus firepower to a battle of information dominance versus structural engineering. Maduro's facility failed not because his defenses were weak, but because U.S. intelligence identified the single critical vulnerability that no amount of reinforced concrete could protect: the thermodynamic requirement for air exchange. So here's what should keep every defense planner awake at night. If a 6-man team with $400,000 in explosives can collapse a billion-dollar underground fortress by exploiting basic physics, what other impenetrable military installations around the world are just expensive death traps waiting for someone to find their thermodynamic Achilles heel? Venezuela just learned a conclusion billion-dollar lesson. There's no fortress deep enough to hide from U.S. Marine precision. Maduro's mountain collapsed in 15 seconds, proving that American amphibious warfare doesn't break down doors. We find the structural weakness you forgot existed. Smash that subscribe button for more naval dominance breakdowns.